Hey there. What's up, everybody? How you doing today? Or this evening, I guess. It's about 8 p.m., 7:30 p.m. here in the Portland area. West Coast time. I was going to make a video and then I thought twice about it, and then I was just going to go back in the house and I thought, no, I'll make one spontaneous video just because. Because I can, and because I feel like I need to. It's what YouTube is to me. It's a way for me to kind of release my thoughts and discuss things that are on my mind, and it helps me process. I have grown so much according to my own status, my own interests, and my own outlook over the past 5 years. It's not just because of YouTube by any means. It's life, you know. As my kids get older, as I get older, as I understand what it means to become a middle-aged man. I don't really know what that means, but I guess I'm in my 40s now, so that's maybe used to be middle-aged. Who knows? It's all just words. But I'm squeezed in there with Generation X, with this little group of people who grew up with still using compasses and Walkmans, tapes, but moving on into the era of digital and watching everything change over time. And I just saw a spider run across my table. He's trying to be sneaky, but he doesn't realize I can totally see him. I'm gonna try to give him a new home. Like, whoa, they're fast, dude. That guy's fast as heck. I've never seen a spider that fast. It's funny, I saw him earlier and I was just thinking about that, you know, the speed of spiders. Anyhow, that's totally separate to the point here. I've got, you know, anybody who's ever worked in a factory, especially if you're producing a product, knows that every line has to work properly. If one part isn't functioning, everything backs up, like in a bottling plant. So here I am with all these pages of notes, and there's one on my camera, another one over here, another one in the house that have backed up for the past few days that I've been taking, wanting to make videos about. And each one is an idea that I have that I want to share, and when I have an idea for a video, I instantly go and start researching it to figure out which points I want to make. Not heavily, but heavily enough to where I usually spend a lot longer than I intend to, and then end up not making the video most of the time. For me, knowledge is just about learning as much as I can and just understanding the world around me, because it helps me live better. But I just feel this urge to share with other people, you know, like, guess what I've discovered? Like, I've got this whole list of caffeine alkaloids and how it compares to kratom alkaloids, not the comparison necessarily as much as why some people can't drink coffee, you know, because of their genetics and a certain enzyme. And these things to me fascinate me because they help us live better and understand the reason why I'm not like you is because I'm not like you. You know what I mean? People are so hung up on trying to get other people to be just like them. They want everybody to be a cookie cutter. You know, it's like, I've been watching this for so long now that there's the hipster type that want to escape the norm, so they go on and they create their own group. It's kind of like what they call the new atheism. Like, it's the same as like hipsterism in the sense that it's a bunch of people that are all into the same thing that pretend like they're wanting to step away from the masses, the groups, but yet they're in their own group, if you will. There's like a certain style that goes along and a mentality with all different types of groups of people. And I'm not judging hipsters or anybody else, but there's some things that are so obvious in our society that we can see where it's time to poke a little bit of fun at everything. I make the video the other day that was about PC culture, and most people completely agree, but some people still don't get it. They don't understand why being correct and honest is not equated with, or I should say, not forcing people to follow a certain speech is not equated with being a racist or a misogynist or anything else. That I'm actually a liberal-minded person, so I've watched this happen and watched this unfold. and watched how we have just been raped of our reality. Oops, can I say rape? See, as soon as I said that, I realized it was retarded to say that. Oh shit, I said retarded. God, I'm so lame. Oh, wait, I realized you can't even say lame. All of those are truly considered trigger words. And when I found out that colleges were like giving people trigger warnings before Romeo and Juliet because of violence and sex, I thought, oh fuck, we're totally screwed, you know? But of course I don't feel like we're totally screwed. What I realized is that we're going through a pendulum swing to the other extreme. So many people have been marginalized for so long that they're overcompensating by being extremely, almost sometimes violent towards others. In other words, like stories of people who say something somebody doesn't like, and some liberal-minded, liberal, if you will, considering themselves a liberal, self-claimed, hits them or threatens physical violence, and then it's kind of like laughed at as like, well, that's what you get for being a right-winger. But watching this unfold as a person who used to consider myself left, that I've thought, I've watched this walk away movement and everything else, and I thought, it's just society trying to balance itself out. And over a couple of generations, we will come to terms with this. In fact, I had a discussion earlier, a YouTube comment where somebody said, that we were talking through a few comments about the rich and the poor, and he was saying that I believe we need to basically, there's so much, it's so disparaging, and there's such a wide gap, between the rich and the poor, and that the rich just belittle the poor and are biased against them and look down on them. And I said, what's funny is that I've noticed many poor who look down on the rich for the same reasons, because they're different, and because, oh, they're rich, they must be greedy. Like, I'm the kind of guy who will defend people who are rich, not because I like rich people, but because I say they're people too. And I want to believe that as a human, we're all on the same page to an extent. Just because a person yearns for more money or more fame doesn't mean that they hate people or that they're not meaning well. Doesn't mean they always do well, that's not the point, but that being a human is much more complicated, and the more money and the more responsibility a person has, the more everybody's looking at them and they're in the public eye, and then everybody expects more, and then you get people who believe that George Soros is literally the devil, that kind of stuff, where everybody has an opinion. I don't really care, because I've resigned myself, and as I was saying, I want to stick the discussion I had, we ended up talking about how I was trying to explain to the person how none of the big things matter if we can't change them. And like I've said this a dozen times, circle of influence and circle of concern. If you can influence it, deal with it, focus on it. But the circle of concern are things like conspiracies and whatnot, things like New World Order and depopulation that we really can't do anything about. We can pretend like we're woke, which I had this thought earlier as a woke joke. I just pictured making this comic. My wife and I were talking, and I think she mentioned the term woke for like these dinosaurs. God, I can't remember what it was. The evolution of dinosaurs, like being woke. I'll get back to that one. It was pretty funny, but that I found myself kind of laughing at the, dare I not say millennials, but it's not millennials, it's just millennial-aged people, college-aged people that really have trigger warnings, but also safe spaces. There's even one college that has a puppy room over in the UK or Scotland where you can like go pet puppies if you're stressed during exams. Look, I get it. We're trying to change as a society. We're sensitive. We do need help. We do need a little bit of counseling and understanding from one another. But that's what I was trying to say. We all need to do it for one another. We need to care about each other. We don't need to be forced to have certain languages, but also we don't need to coddle each other because an entire generation grew up. Look, I'm not gonna try to get into the semantics, the details, the excuses, or try to compare genders or races or cultures or generations or anything. What I just want to say is that if you grow up without adversity in your life and you never face anything hard, you never get strong. And this is what happens with viruses, with colds, with a variety of different diseases, where if a child is not exposed young, then later on they get their ass kicked. And let me tell you, there's new science now about peanut allergies and why there's like 20% of kids are developing, or 17.5% of kids are developing peanut allergies, compared to like much less before. And they're saying why. They said that if kids aren't exposed to peanuts at a young age, or rather the kids that are exposed don't tend to develop the allergies. And now they're introducing peanut powder in small amounts on a test group of kids who have peanut allergies, and many of them were able to get over it. That tells you a lot about human nature. If you get your ass kicked over and over, you understand it. When I was in school, we could still get in a fist fight in the hallway without anybody getting sent to the principal's office or getting expelled. Today, if that happens, what? Somebody's wimpy ass parents are going to call and try to sue somebody. Little kid, oh my God, you got in a fist fight. And I understood that it's a changing culture, so I started to understand that. I was like, okay, we're changing, and I gave it some time, but it got worse and worse. And then I started hearing about these things. I thought, colleges aren't really this bad, are they? And then I found out that, administrations were catering to this whole, safe space thing, and it got worse and worse and worse until it is what it is today, where I'm not left or right. I never have been. I'm an independent, right? But I can laugh at both sides and say, look at this, guys. We've got to come together and find a happy medium. But I know that's a pipe dream. And I also realize we're never going to change. Let's put it this way. There's no utopia. We're not going to compromise and say this is how we're going to run politics or the world or anything else. And nor can anybody force a minimum wage. Like I was having another conversation about that. I understand things on a different level than I did before. Not better or worse, but just more complete. And understand that the market, regardless of how you feel about it, is stronger than any government. That it will bulldoze over the entire world. The way that people trade will supersede and overcome any government who tries to stop it. The black market is a motherfucker, people. We all know this. So we have to realize and give credit to the multi-billion-dollar, if not trillion-dollar, black market, which basically the more regulations and rules you put on business, the more people move to the black market. In other words, my example would be people say, well, we need to punish U.S. businesses that don't use U.S. products. And I say, well, then why won't they move overseas? There's plenty of countries to buy stuff. We're not the only player in town. And that's what I think we all need to realize. As individuals, we're not the only player in town. As a whole, we can work together to be a better society. That means we can compromise, but we don't have to put up with each other's bullshit. We don't have to be super sensitive about everything. We can't stifle comedy or stifle people's right to say what they want. And it's a very difficult one because there have always been rules. If people think that people are sensitive today, oh my God, I could... I was thinking about this earlier. I was thinking, I know that a lot of those, because I seem like I'm attacking the left. Well, let me just say this. I know that a lot of people on the right laugh at the liberal, snowflake, left, trustafarian, wimpy college kids who are out there complaining, and I totally get where you're coming from. But don't forget, it was you guys who back in the 80s tried to run all these bands and all these people off of the radio because they were saying bad words you didn't want to hear, talking about sex. But here's the thing, it's not a right or left, and I'm not saying it's a Republican thing. The thing we have to realize is in politics, the people who are Republicans and Democrats today have completely switched all around. Not reversed or anything, but they're all new people. Everyone's individual policies in their lives reflect a lot about the society they live in. So it's not the same as it was. Progressive doesn't mean the same thing. Republican, Democrat, none of it means even what it did 20 years ago. The point being that it was the tight-ass extremists on the right that wanted to ban, bad words in movies, bad words in music. They were the ones trying to stifle free speech, okay? And it was the liberal left who, all these 80s bands who tried to fight back and do what they wanted. And now today, the left is saying, we don't want to hear what you have to say on the right. It's okay. It's going to pass. We're going to move through it. We're going to move past it. And you don't have to take sides. You can be an individual and think for your fucking self, because it's getting ridiculous. But watching it unfold is a little bit humorous, but I have no stake in it. I resign myself to just watch and just learn, absorb it, and share what I can. There's a side of me that did grow up in the 80s. And I've always been a very, kind of an intense person. I don't take bullshit, and may not come across that way to some people. So they're surprised to hear that I'm like, fuck these guys or fuck these guys. But, my friends and I used to call each other retards and use all kinds of slang terms that today just are completely unacceptable, with no bad intention when we said them, like I said. And today I just feel like the one aspect that I haven't mentioned yet, which is the main thing I left out of this video I did the other day. I wanted to talk about men and women, this whole difference thing, how people are afraid to admit there's differences. Yes, women are generally not as strong as men. Some women are stronger than some men. It doesn't mean anything. It's such trivial bullshit to even argue about that. What matters is that whether we know that we are slightly different overall, and it's not a stereotype, it's a generalization that's based in truth, and it's okay to embrace the differences. The thing is, men are afraid to even talk to women in the workplace. It's really becoming an issue. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that women shouldn't complain or that this whole Me Too movement is all bullshit. I'm saying that it's an unfortunate reverse of the pendulum, that for so long there was a lot of sexism and most people tolerated it, and then all of a sudden rape culture got thrown in with just general butt pinching or joking in the workplace, which anybody who grew up in the 80s and 90s knows that ass pinching or like butt slapping or like making jokes to women in the workplace was so common through all the way up until like the last decade. And it's now completely unacceptable. Nobody knows what to say. People are afraid to talk to one another. And so that's what I'm hearing, because I don't work in a workplace, but I've heard so many stories that I feel like I'm obligated to talk about this. Like, it's something that is part of our society. If people are afraid to go out and try to fuck each other, we have a serious problem in this society. But it will mend itself over time, because people will always fuck. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter what kind of laws you put on it or regulations on the words, So I'll leave it at that. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a good night. Just remember, don't take things too seriously. It doesn't matter, If you see something that's really worth fighting for, fight for it. But remember that adversity is not just a name calling. Adversity is an ass beating, and a lot of us have been through it. So, talk to you soon.